Okay, Leo.
Thank you. Nice to be on. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. I also have Professor Kweku Asare. He is at the University of Florida, a state that shocked Biden. Professor Asare, great to have you.
Good evening, Bernard. Thanks for having me again.
Fantastic. I'll be joined in studio by H.S. Sikanku as well. He's a doctor of communications. Before that, let me give you a 2-minute wrap of what we know so far about the election.
The fate of the United States presidency hung in the balance on Wednesday as President Donald Trump and Democratic challenger Joe Biden battled for the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, which are considered as the battleground states that could determine who wins the presidency. The latest vote counts in Michigan and Wisconsin gave Biden a small lead, but it was still too early to find an outright winner. It is unclear when or how quickly a winner will be determined. Donald Trump is projected to win 23 states, including Texas, Ohio, and Florida. But earlier, he alleged electoral fraud and revealed the possibility of challenging the results at the Supreme Court, though millions of votes were still to be counted.
This is a major fraud in our nation. We want the law to be used in a proper manner. So we'll be going to the U.S. Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. We don't want them to find any ballots at 4 o'clock in the morning and add them to the list. Okay?
While counting is still ongoing in some of the key states, Joe Biden's lead in the popular vote keeps growing. The Democrat is leading President Trump by more than 2.5 million votes nationally, putting him on 50% of the overall vote share and Trump on 48%.
We feel good about where we are. We really do. I'm here to tell you tonight, we believe we're on track to win this election. We knew because of the unprecedented early vote and the mail-in vote that it's going to take a while. We're going to have to be patient until the hard work of tallying votes is finished. And it ain't over till every vote is counted, every ballot is counted.
So far, some news outlets and projections state that Biden has 227 electoral college votes, while Trump has 213. To win the presidency, 270 electoral college votes are needed. Observers say it may take a day or more before the final outcome is known, especially as the full results for 8 states, including Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, are yet to be projected.
So that was a quick wrap of where we are. Various networks are reporting different things. Politico says Biden has 248 electoral votes, Trump has 214. Let me start with Professor Kweku Asare. Yesterday, was it Monday night, you were pretty confident that it was going to be at least bigger for Biden than we're seeing the trends. We're all sitting on tenterhooks now. So what's going on? What's your reading of what's happened so far?
Well, it was very interesting, an interesting race. And as at now, I would say Biden has a clear path to the 270 delegates. You remember on Monday when we spoke, I said I'd rather be in Biden's position than Trump's. The reason being, this is a race to grab 270 delegates. The first guy to grab 270 delegates wins the contest. And so the two contestants have to identify different paths to the 270. And I liked the multiple paths that Biden had to the 270. When we talk about the swing states, that also implies that there are some states that are not contested. And when you look at those uncontested states, Biden starts with 225 delegates, and Trump starts with 173 delegates. So from the swing states, Biden has to cobble around 45 from somewhere, and he wins. Trump, on the other hand, has to cobble 97. Otherwise, he has no chance. So this gives Biden multiple paths to the presidency. And I was talking yesterday about some of those paths. So for instance, there is the southeast wall. The southeast wall requires Biden to go into the southeast and grab either Florida, Georgia, or North Carolina. If he's able to do that, he delivers a knockout, the game is over. But he doesn't have to win all of them or even any of them, because he has backup paths. So for instance, if he goes to the southeast and he comes up empty, he has a Midwest firewall, and that entails trying to grab Ohio.
Okay.
No Republican can win the presidency without grabbing Ohio.
Now,
But if he loses Ohio,
yeah.
then he looks for something around. I call that either the Southwest strategy, to see whether you can grab Texas, very unlikely, or grab Arizona, a little more plausible, and then along the way, pick up one delegate from Nebraska, because Nebraska is one of these states that awards delegates based on districts.
Prof, before you go on, and sorry I'm cutting you, what I wanted you to deal with first was that the build up to this had been presented as though there was going to be a big repudiation of Donald Trump. And from what we're seeing, this is not the case. This is a 50-50. So my question is not in terms of the path to victory. My first point is about, has this not been shocking in the sense that with all the build up and all that noise about people are tired of Trump, this is actually a nation divided right down the middle?
Absolutely. I mean, make no mistake about it. Trump was not repudiated at all. What this tells us is whoever Trump is somebody that the Americans like, at least half of them like. And so to some people, including myself, he may represent the West in terms of what we think a head of state should look like. But the beauty of a democracy is what you don't like may be what somebody likes. And that's why we have this contest. But clearly...
Oh, we lost... Prof, you've frozen. Let me come to... Prof, you're freezing down. So let me get to Professor Liombe Echo. Prof, when I interviewed you last month, you said that...
Because
it would be...
It wouldn't felt that Trump's repudiation will have a vicarious effect on the...
Okay, Professor, let me come to Professor Liombe, because we're having challenges with you. Liombe, you said to us that we should not try and predict this election because there were too many factors at play. Can I say you've been vindicated by what we've seen so far?
Say that again?
Professor Liombe, I'm saying that when we interviewed you earlier last month, you said that it would be foolhardy to try and predict the election because there were too many variables at play. Does what we've seen so far vindicate your position?
That is correct. That's what I said, that anybody who tried to predict the election really did not know what he was talking about. There are just too many variables, too many things going on. I need to point out that yesterday, what we saw was a repudiation of the American media. We saw it was a repudiation of the polls, the pollsters. They need to go back to school. It was a repudiation of all the pundits who had said this was a foregone conclusion, that it was all over, we should all go home. But I need to make a few points here in response to my brother from Florida there. His strategies point we have here is that electoral college. You see, there was a time when the Republicans in the 60s and the 70s were the dominant party in California, in New York, in other places. They had the same paths, they had the same strategies, and there have been 700 attempts to eliminate
Wow.
It was started in 76. The Electoral College has stood the test of time. It's been there for 244 years. And the Republicans who had when they were dominant in California and other states, they were at the forefront of those who wanted to eliminate the Electoral College. It's the Democratic Senate that blocked it in 1969, or else there would have been no, they were going to pass
Wow.
constitutional amendment to remove the Electoral College. So that's the first thing. The Electoral College and all the paths or the strategies that the different parties have used to get to power over the years is a bedrock of American federalism. The idea that all the states are equal. A pluribus unum in Latin, from many, one. So the smallest state, Rhode Island, and the biggest state, California and Texas, they are all supposed to be equal. That's supposed to be the same. That's why they all have each of them has two senators. So again, this is a crisis of sorts. But we've had crises like this. This is the sixth time in American history from 1776 where the Electoral College, we've had a disconnect between the popular vote and the Electoral College vote. And the system has worked. There was one time when the president won by one electoral vote. There was a time when there was a tie in the Electoral College vote, and there was a tie in the popular vote. And guess who got to decide? The Constitution says the House of Representatives gets to choose the president in that case. So there have been all kinds of scenarios, and it has worked. So for me, this election, even though it looks like it's ugly, it's a vindication of that original idea of American federalism, which gives all the states equal power. If you remove that Electoral College, we are in trouble. American democracy ceases to be American democracy. That's the first point I would like to make.
Fair enough. Now, I'm joined in studio by Dr. Ese Sekanku. Great to have you.
Good to be with you.
I pressed you 2 days ago to stick your neck out, and you said, even though you thought Biden would win, you wouldn't be surprised if Trump won. You were sort of sitting on the fence.
Right.
It looks like you knew this kind of thing was going to happen.
Right.
And so, how surprised have you been about what we've seen so far?
Not so much at all. And I was, speaking to a lot of my colleagues, telling them to be quite cautious, in the way they evaluated this particular race. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of people who were speaking about the blue wall, a lot of people who were speaking about the firewall and all of the wave. Some even started talking about a wave. And I said I wouldn't be surprised if this went the other way. Now, we still don't know what is conclusive, but we have not had a wave. We've not had a firewall in the way that people were saying. And like Professor Eko had said, he chooses to go, on a bit more extreme, saying is the repudiation of the media, a repudiation of punditry, a repudiation of the polls. But I think that it is the same thing that is trying to tell us that we should be a little bit moderate or humble or cautious in the way that we view these polls. Because if we were going according to them, it was just going to be Biden was going to run riot. And that is not what happened. Donald Trump won Florida. The polls said that Florida was close, but Biden was ahead. He won it. Some of the polls, you have some of the polls, and I have it right in front of me here. They said Florida, Biden +1. In Ohio, they said Biden +1. Trump ended up winning it. So I guess in all of this, but they did get some of the states right. For instance, in Wisconsin, which has now been called for Biden, the polls did predict that Biden was going to win, and he won it. So it is not a total repudiation. They also said Trump was up in Iowa, and of course Trump did win. Although some had it at neck and neck, but some of the polls did have it right. So it is not a total condemnation or repudiation, but also it was not as they thought it was going to be.
Let's look at the electoral map and try and make sense of what we're seeing so far. So I'm putting out from Politico what they have: 247 electoral votes for Joe Biden, 214 for Donald Trump, and they are saying that Michigan is leaning towards Biden. He's probably going to win it. Georgia and North Carolina, very close, but it seems as if Trump will just hold on there. Pennsylvania is really the problem there. So now let's try and find out which of these states has been the most surprising. Let me start with Kweku Azar, Professor Asari. Which state result? What are your top two most surprising things from what we are seeing here? Was it the Texas issue? Was it the Florida issue? Where you live? What is the most surprising?
Actually, the Arizona issue. The Arizona victory for Biden, to me, is the story.
Okay.
Because Arizona, even though it had been trending purple over the years, it was still reliably red. Mm-hmm. And I consider, and this is speculative on my part, the frosty relationship between Trump and John McCain as playing a role in that victory for Biden. In a way, John McCain, even though he's not here, has had an impact on this election, and he's done his friend Joe Biden a favor because the picking of Arizona was very crucial, and to me that was the biggest surprise. Let me also say that even though there are a whole lot of polls out there, the Biden people, the Biden team, they have their own polls, and they never bought this idea that this was going to be some repudiation of Trump and it was going to be a cakewalk and so on. They always insisted that this was going to be a fiercely contested election, and their strategy was the blue wall. They were in Florida, they were in Texas, they were in Georgia. Those were insurance policies. They were not truly relying on winning these states.
All right.
So if you just follow the polls, then yes, you'll be surprised. But if you were listening to what the Biden team and the Trump team, they were telling us, then this was not a surprise.
Fair enough.
At all.
Professor, hold on. I want to come to Echo on the map. Anything shocking you there based on the map we've seen? 244 Biden, 214 Trump, with
no, actually, no, not really. I would agree with my colleague there that the only thing that was a little bit shocking was Arizona, in the sense that, and by the way, the Trump campaign is challenging Arizona, and there might be, as you all know, there are provisions for recounts in all of these states, where if there's a certain the score is below a certain threshold, there is a recount, and I think Trump is going to ask for a recount in Arizona, and in Wisconsin, and in Michigan, and possibly in Pennsylvania, because these elections, the COVID pandemic complicated these elections. It made for a lot of early voting and for a lot of mail balloting. The mail balloting has made a lot of difference towards the tail end of the counting process. The problem is that there are certain issues there that need to be sorted out. Some people received mail ballots. We do not know, number one, if those people are still alive, because some people, they sent to their address. We don't know who filled those ballots. Number two, some people filled ballots and then they went, both Republicans and Democrats, they went in person and voted. So there's a possibility of double voting, and the systems have a way of sorting all of those out. We don't know. So that's why the lawyers, you hear both parties have lawyered up, and the lawyers are ready to challenge, and they're going to court and so on and so forth.
But does the fact that the incumbent is looking at court suggest to us that when the counting is over, he knows that Biden would have made the 270?
I do not know about that. I think that if Biden was in the other side, he also would have challenged it. The idea is about the legitimacy of elections. Why do people send in a mail-in vote and then they go in person? They don't trust, or the post office. Do we trust the post office? That the post office in Pennsylvania, for example, if you mail your ballot on the election day, you have up to 3 days for it to count. And so anything can happen in those 3 days. The question is about the legitimacy of elections.
Yeah, but to the extent that he's been attacking the process even before it started, does that not reveal his mindset?
Yeah, of course it does. Trump is a street fighter. You should know that. Trump is, as he's a businessman in New York, he has had to fight against the mafia, organized crime, and so on to be successful. Trump is a fighter by instinct, and so he does not react like a regular politician, so to speak. So it is. I don't find it strange at all. It's not out of character. Trump fights with everybody, including his own people. so I mean, it is up to the states where we have these close elections to show the people that the elections or the count was legitimate. Because you see, elections not only have to be legitimate, they must be seen to be legitimate. That's just like justice. Justice must not only be done, it must be seen to be done. So I agree with Biden in the sense that we should let the process play itself out.
Fair enough.
Even if it has to go to court, let it go to court like we did in 2000. Remember in 2000, Bush versus Gore, it came down to only one state.
Yes.
And Florida. And ultimately, it came down to 400 votes.
Fair enough. All right. I wanted to bring to viewers two new developments. So in the past few minutes whilst we've been on air, Joe Biden has been speaking. When we come back from the break, I'll bring you that video. It's just 2 minutes. And then some networks are projecting that Biden has won Michigan, reclaiming the blue wall state, so that your blue wall theory, Kweku, is still there. It looks like the only part of the blue wall he misses is Ohio. So we'll be right back. My guests are Professor Leombe Echo, who's teaches in Iowa but lives in Texas. Professor Kweku Asare lives in Florida, and Dr. Echichikan, who lives in Ghana. He studied in Iowa. This is the point of view. Stay with us.
Morning. I just sent you Airtel Tigo money from my new number. We delivered 2 healthy kids last night. Congrats. Have you heard? Kwesi has
2 kids. Have you heard?
My son has 2 kids. Abazi. No. No, your sister almost sent me.
Have you heard the news about the missing chicken?
Have you heard? Get free calls and free Airtel Tigo money transfers for 6 months on new Airtel Tigo SIMs. Get a SIM today.
Since 2017, a new dawn is breaking in Ghana. The NPP is building the foundations for growth and transformation. We are curbing unemployment with new and decent jobs.
Thanks to Nana, I've got a new job through NAPCO. That is why I'm voting for him as the MPP.
The promise of free SHS is now a reality.
Through education, I have a brighter future. That's why I'm voting for Nana and the NPP.
The future of our country is in the hands of a competent leader, a man you can trust.
I trust Nana.
This December, Let's protect our progress. Let's give Nana 4 more to do more for you.
2020, 4 more for Nana. 2020, 2020, Nana.
Constant yawning, heavy eyelids, blurred vision, and veering off the road are some of the signs that you are falling asleep while driving. This is driver fatigue. Always stop when tired. In Ghana, by law, after 4 hours of continuous driving, drivers should take a mandatory 30 minutes rest. Whilst resting, avoid heavy food, alcohol, and drugs. Even some medication can impair your driving. A driver can then drive for another 4 hours in that day. For long distances, share the drive. Avoid driver fatigue by getting a good sleep before trips. Don't drive tired. Stop road crashes now. Stay alive.
This road safety education is brought to you by the National Road Safety Authority.
Welcome back to The Point of View. It's happening in real time. Joe Biden has been speaking. We'll bring you that video shortly. My guest in studio, Dr. Echisi Kanku, who's a political communications expert. I have Professor Liombe Eko. He teaches in the University of Iowa. He's a researcher, but he also lives in Texas. And I have Professor Kweku Asare, who lives in Florida. So whilst we've been on air, CNN has just projected that Joe Biden will win Michigan, taking him closer to the 270 electoral votes. Before we came on air, Biden was 248, Trump was 214. Now, if the 16 electoral votes for Michigan counts, he's going to go to
238. Not 240.
He was on 238.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's gotten now 16
and 10.
Yes. So if you add 10 to 238, that's 248.
Right.
And then you add 16, that's 264.
Yeah.
So it looks like Mr. Blue Wall. It looks like it's coming home, isn't it?
It is home.
It is home. You think so?
Yes, because you see, that was the strategy. Even though one of the blue walls have not fallen, that is Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania now is not very critical because he won Arizona, and he picked one delegate from Nebraska.
Okay.
So with the pickup from Arizona, winning Nevada, which is a Democratic state, and then the winning Arizona with the 2 states from the blue wall, he has 270.
But Nevada hasn't been called yet. It's very close.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Nevada hasn't been called, but it's a reliably blue state. So assuming Biden wins Nevada, which I think he will, then that gives him the 6 votes that he needs to move from 264 to 270.
So then that would mean that the Trump team's legal challenge in Pennsylvania may even be moot, and he would probably have to move this to the Supreme Court, because we heard earlier on that they were thinking of stopping the counting in Pennsylvania. If Nevada comes through, that may not be necessary, right?
I think right now they are just doing a kitchen sink approach, right? So there are so many moving things, and you just try what you can, because the election, it's not like the election in Ghana, right? There are, strictly speaking, 50 elections going on.
Okay.
And each state has its own rules. Each state has its own laws. And so if you're unhappy with something going on in Pennsylvania, you have to go to the Pennsylvania courts to assert your claim. You have to go to the Michigan court to assert your claims, and it becomes a little confusing. And the easiest way would be if you could go to the Supreme Court and then get the Supreme Court to issue some order that affects multiple states. But it's not easy at all. I mean, you really have to have some standing before you go to the US Supreme Court. Elections are state events. And so if you have grievances, you must ventilate those grievances in the state's court. And then to the extent that some the federal issue arises, then you can now go to the federal court. And even in the federal court, you don't just start by going to the U.S. Supreme Court. You have to go to the district courts and so on and so forth. So it's the kitchen sink approach. That's what lawyers do. If you have the facts, you argue the facts. If you don't have the facts, you argue the law. And if you don't have the facts or the law, then you bang the table. Eventually, what you will be doing will be banging the table. Because look, election results are stubborn things. You can recount and complain and claim fraud, but they are stubborn things. Once they are counted, they stay the same. I've seen so many recounts. I myself have been an observer of recounts in Florida during the 2000 dispute. And it's stubborn. You count and you count and you count, and you get to the original outcome plus or minus some irrelevant, insignificant numbers.
So it looks like the recount part will not work. It's the legal part that he may use. Actually, so it's looking like Biden is winning, but it's very clear.
It's looking like it. I like to go with the Associated Press. Like that is the AP. The AP golden standard. And they have called Wisconsin for Trump. Sorry, for Biden, bringing him to 248 as we tried to analyze before. So he just needs Nevada, combining Nevada with Michigan. That's it, and then he's gone. And I think some have called Michigan, as you've said.
Yes,
but
CNN just called Michigan.
Michigan, right?
We're waiting for Associated Press. Now, don't forget that earlier in the day, Fox News called Arizona.
Yeah.
And then AP called Arizona.
Right.
And a lot of the liberal network did not call Arizona. Yeah. It was Fox News that called Arizona. Right. Let's hear.
But let's leave it at that. I mean, most of them have called it. So Michigan, Wisconsin, a key part of the blue state.
So once he gets
reclaimed.
Nevada, that's
it. Yeah.
Let's hear Mr. Biden. He spoke about 15 minutes ago.
So once this election is finalized and behind us, it'll be time for us to do what we've always done as Americans, to put the harsh rhetoric of the campaign behind us, to lower the temperature, to see each other again, to listen to one another, to hear each other again, and respect and care for one another, to unite, to heal, to come together as a nation. I know this won't be easy. I'm not naive. Neither of us are. I know how deep and hard the opposing views are in our country on so many things. But I also know this as well. To make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as enemies. We are not enemies. What brings us together as Americans is so much stronger than anything that can tear us apart. So let me be clear. We are campaigning as a Democrat, but I will govern as an American president. The presidency itself is not a partisan institution. It's the one office in this nation that represents everyone. And it demands a duty of care for all Americans. That is precisely what I will do. I will work as hard for those who didn't vote for me as I will for those who did vote for me. Now, every vote must be counted. No one's going to take our democracy away from us. Not now, not ever. America's come too far. America's fought too many battles. America's endured too much to ever let that happen. We, the people, will not be silenced. We, the people, will not be bullied. We, the people, will not surrender. My friends, I'm confident we'll emerge.
So that was Joe Biden about 10-15 minutes ago speaking. Professor Echo, was that a veiled victory speech? Is he speaking before time? What's your analysis of his choice of words, attempting to unify when we're still not out of the woods yet? What is he doing there?
What Biden is doing, it is a victory speech. He's saying, let's move on, this is over. And you know, what he's doing is a repudiation of Al Gore in 2000. You see, Al Gore, the Democrat, when things got tight in Florida in 2000, Al Gore sat back and Al Gore did nothing. And there was a recount. And the recount favored George Bush. It was only 400 votes in the state of Florida.
Wow.
And so Al Gore, being a gentleman, he went ahead and conceded even before the count was over. And so that's how Bush became the president, George Bush, the son. And so what we are seeing here is that Biden is trying to avoid the Bush scenario. Everybody says, hey, it looks like we're going to have something similar to the 2000 vote in Florida. So I think Biden is moving on. Essentially, that's what he's saying. He says, hey, folks, this is all over. The game is over. Let's move on. And, let's mend the fences. Neighbors have been angry at each other and so on and so forth. It's over. That's what he's trying to say. And I don't think, again, like I said, Trump is a fighter. Trump is a street fighter.
So are you saying you don't think this is over? I mean, it's quite clear that Biden is going to get 270. You're saying that Trump, he's not going to give up until all options are completely done?
Trump will explore every single option. Trump is a fighter. He is going to ask for a recount in Arizona, in Nevada, in Michigan, in Wisconsin, every single state which was closed, he is going to explore that possibility. I can guarantee you that. And while that is going on, the secretaries of state of all the states have to certify the elections. So the media giving us figures, they're not official. Those are not official. The secretaries of state, when the counting is done, the Secretary of State of each state certifies the election, and then it becomes official. So in the meantime, Trump will be walking the ref, so to speak, the Secretaries of State, putting pressure on them to do recounts. That's, I think, what was going to happen. So it's all over, but it's not all over.
Okay, quick. Is it over? Is it over, or is not over until it's over?
Well, it's over. And I agree with Echo that this looks like Florida. The only difference between this and Florida is that in Florida, it was George Bush who was in the lead. Florida had gone his way, albeit with a very limited number of votes, about 500 votes. And here it's gone Biden's way. So Biden in 2020 is behaving like Bush then. He's doing the right thing. He's saying, hey, look, we've done the counting, and I've looked at the votes. It is clear that I don't have the mandate because it's a very narrow victory, and I want to unite the country. So let's stop the bickering. Let's come together. Let's solve Americans' problems. That's basically what he's saying. On the other hand, Trump, as Professor Eko is saying, he has the right to ask for recounts, to go to court, and so on and so forth. And that's the beauty of the American system. Merely because you have a right to ask for a recount and to go to court and so on, the facts are not going to change. The facts are quite stubborn. And the counting process that they use is not some counting process that is prone to error. Because right at the counting table are Republicans and Democrats supervising and checking every ballot that is counted. I've done that a couple of times for the Democrats. This is the first year that I've not done it because of the virus. So yes, he's going to ask for a recount, but I mean, I've been surprised before.
We are told that the Supreme Court is 6-3 conservative. If it gets to the Supreme Court, some people think that could affect the outcome. Am I misguided, or is this something we should be concerned about?
I don't think it will get there.
It won't get to the Supreme Court.
Number one, it will be very difficult to get there. You have to create some federal issue. Okay. So, for instance, in the Bush v. Gore, the issue was that the votes were not being treated equally, and that violates the Equal Opportunity Amendment. So you have to fashion some kind of federal claim before you can get to the U.S. Supreme Court. And even then, you have to go to the district and so on and so forth. So the idea that Trump thinks that because he has 6 votes in his mind at the Supreme Court, he can send everything there is just fantasy. And
I think that let's go a little bit before that. I think what Trump is going to challenge is the legitimacy of some votes before the counting process. The votes that were accepted after the voting period had ended, are those legitimate? I think that is one of the points they are going to make. And then those who received the ballots, are they registered voters? Are they on the voting rolls and so on and so forth? They are going to go into those kinds of technicalities and raise those to say that certain votes should be excluded, just as you know very well. Evidence in court that is collected illegally is thrown out. So he wants, I think they're going to ask certain ballots that were either, if they say there's double voting or illegal balloting, those should be thrown out. Those are the kinds of things they will bring up. Again, like I said, he is in a position of weakness. Clearly, he is in a position of weakness, but he has to exhaust all those opportunities. And again, going back to Biden's speech, Biden knows that he does, like you said, he doesn't have a mandate. The Senate is still going to be controlled by the Republicans. The Republicans have gained seats in the House, so it makes if Biden ultimately is confirmed as president, it makes his job difficult.
Okay.
Because the Senate can always block his moves, and the House, is narrowed. It's narrowed up, and Nancy Pelosi is going to have a tougher time, ruling. So that's why he's sounding conciliatory if he wants to have it done.
Thank you, Prof. We'll take another short break. When we come back, we'll try and explain what just happened and which demographic won it for Biden, since we're now saying he's a presumptive winner. This is the point of view. Stay with us.
During tough times, we need a competent leader we can trust to keep us all safe.
Nana gave me free water when I needed it most to keep me clean and safe from COVID-19.
Nana gave me lower cost of internet during COVID-19 to operate my small business from home.
Nana told us to trust him to keep our children safe from COVID-19 when we send them back to school. Nana was right.
Nana gave me free electricity in my hour of need during COVID-19.
Nana told us to trust him to keep Ghana safe from COVID-19.
Nivea Men Deep Antiperspirant with the power of black carbon formula. 48-hour protection from sweat and bacteria. For a deep, clean feeling that lasts. New Nivea Men Deep Antiperspirant. Nivea Men. It starts with you. Official sponsor of Real Madrid.
See, guys, the team will do all. So give me 4 more. More could do more.
Please be what they pour me. 4 more for what?
Must answer the guy. 4 more for what? 4 more to do more for you. 4 more to steal more excavators and our money. Bisabio. Or 4 more to kill Ghanaian businesses.
No!
4 more for family and friends.
4 more for neglected projects.
4 more for Sakawa and broken promises.
Opana, and now 4 more to borrow more with nothing to show. No way.
Hello, 4 more for lawlessness, intolerance, and harassment of the media and the political opponents. I beg you.
You make a cry self. What happened to the murders of Ahmed Swali?
What about the members of the Delta Force where they attacked the court for Kumasi?
Where them also brutalized innocent citizens for Ayawa West Wogon. Even you the one that 4 more.
4 more for more corruption scandals like the PDS, Australian visa fraud scandal, can I say fraud scandal, then PPE don't call me contract for sale by the incompetent clearing agents. 4 more to steal more.
No!
Away! 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 Away!
Vote John Mahama and NDC for jobs and prosperity for all.
Welcome back to The Point of View. Tonight we're keeping in touch with the US election. Moments ago, 2 states were called by credible media houses for Joe Biden. So Michigan and Wisconsin tilting towards Joe Biden. He's very close to 270. It is assumed that he would get 270 before close of day. My guest, Professor Leombe Echo, lives in Texas, which sounded pretty close, but eventually Trump won. Teaches in Iowa, which Trump won. Professor Kweku Asare lives in Florida, which Trump won, although people thought it would be close. Dr. Echesikanku is here. Let's try and break down how we got here. There's different polls about support for different ethnic groups. Let's talk about demographics briefly. From what we put on the screen, it will seem as if various groups turned out quite strongly for their support base. The big first thing I see, the black people, 87% for Biden, 12% for Trump.
For Trump, right.
I don't know. This is the BBC. They use this sample. Any surprises there? And which of the voting blocks would you say pushed Biden over?
Right. I think with this, they kind of supported what the pundits and the polls were saying. The big demographic group to look out for was the women vote.
The women?
Yes. And that is what made the difference. You see, 56, they went for Biden, 43. And remember, the other time, it was said that the college-educated women were the people who kind of carried Biden over the line. College-educated women, because the uneducated rural urban population were always likely to go for Joe Biden, were always likely to go for Trump, right? And among the men, because they are both white males, you see that they kind of split it 48, 49.
Yeah, but some of the polls I'm seeing suggest that Trump did much better among Latinos.
Yes,
than people expected.
Right, and so that is what probably worked out for him, let's say in a place like Florida. But for Joe Biden, I think he doing well among the female population, and then he also getting the numbers up among, you see, when you look at the age, he won among young people, the middle age, and then the retirees, the elderly people. Trump was thinking that the retirees will do it for him because they are the more conservative kind of voters, but it looked like Joe Biden also got very close. At least he did not overcome Trump there, but it's 50-48, which is much closer than Hillary Clinton. Hillary suffered among those groups. Do you get it? So I think Trump made up for that that particular age category. Hillary also suffered among the female population.
Okay.
I think these are the 2 demographic groups that really work.
Professor Kweku Asare, we say America is divided. The map has a big red in the middle and blue on the outside. But what are the major fault lines? Is it just racial? Is it age? Is it gender? What are the key issues that divide Americans in terms of demography?
Well, you know, as they say, America is a melting pot. And the key issues that divide them will necessarily be a melting pot as well. It's not going to be one thing, but key among the issues will be racial. I believe some of the reactions to the Democratic Party is a carryover from President Obama's presidency, because there are some people who still feel like he should not have been president. And I think even now they factor it in their voting decisions. Quite apart from the racial issues, there are economic issues. America is a land of opportunity, but the difference between the wealthy, or the difference between the haves and the have-nots, is quite wide. And they need to figure out a way to bridge that gap. It is also cultural. Issues like the right to have a gun balanced against the right for people to feel safe in their homes or on the roads or in the schools, there are people in America who feel like it is okay, for instance, to carry a gun to a lecture.
Wow.
And there are others who come from different cultures, the melting pot issue, who feel like, no, you shouldn't have a gun. And if you have a gun, certainly you should keep it at home. It is religious. We have evangelicals and then other variants of Christianity as well as other. So it's a whole bunch of things.
I see.
And the issues have been percolating, and it's almost come to a crescendo. It's something. So it appears something is going to happen, but then they have elections, and then it calms down, and that is why, in my mind, Biden winning is so important, because Biden is a unifying figure, whereas Trump is a divisive figure. Trump thrives on dividing the people. He thrives on driving a cultural wedge. So he'll go here and say something against black people and then something against Latinos. They call it dog whistles. He's a master of that. And that doesn't augur well for a country like the United States, historically built in terms of many people and who welcome people of diverse backgrounds.
All right, let me take
America great.
Let me take echo on this. Finally, what's your comment?
I think there are a couple of divides in America. The most important one is not race. Trump has the most important color for Trump is green, the color of the dollar. That's it. That's his most important color. He's a businessman. Trump will do business with anyone as long as he benefits, or at least gives the other person the impression that he also benefits. America has a very serious religious and cultural divide. The middle you talk about in that map, that corresponds to the Bible Belt. There are people in America, in the middle mostly, who believe in the traditional family, one man, one woman. They believe in traditional Christian principles. And a lot of them are evangelicals, Protestants, and Catholics. A lot of Catholics are against homosexual marriage, Catholics are against abortion, and so on and so forth. So you will see there's a coalition there which is very hard to define, but it's the Bible Belt. And then on both coasts, you have the more liberal populations, there are large populations who do not quite ascribe to what is in Middle America. The Supreme Court of the United States has said America is like multiple countries. The values of Iowa and Mississippi and Maine are completely different from the values of Florida and California and New York and so on. But what I think is interesting and useful for this election is that we saw that despite Trump being a polarizing figure, he had, say in Florida, there are multiple kinds of Hispanics. He was able to cobble together a coalition of Hispanics from Cuba and Venezuela and Colombia and so on, and even some Haitians to be in Florida. And in Texas, we have some Hispanics who are militantly Trump. I will tell you, my neighbor is a Hispanic, is a militant Trump supporter. So it cuts, it eliminates, and I met African Americans who are very strong supporters of Trump. So I tend to be very skeptical of people who say, oh, this is a racial issue. Because after all, even Biden has a very, very shady racial background in terms of where he sends his children to school and what is about that.
Prof, the issue is not about Biden's racism or Trump's racism. The issue is the role of race in the country. It is a huge problem, regardless of who the leader is. And what you want to avoid is a leader who actually fans that racial there's a racial problem, and you don't want a leader who would come and fan it. You want a leader who would come and try to unite the people. I mean, to not appreciate the role of race in America is to not understand America, because that is the original sin, and that is one of the problems that they are struggling to deal with. A lot of the economic issues that we talk about, for instance, can be traced to slavery and racism, because if you are black, you are not going to get the same opportunities as other people. And while this may not be immediately visible to people, that's what is happening. It's not that there's something inherently.
I fear you are talking the language of victimhood.
I'm not a victim.
That is not correct. The fact that you are black does not make you a victim. That's why you and I, we are where we are, because it's a repudiation of the fact that there's a systemic racism.
No, I'm because I didn't grow up here. If I grew up here, I understand that I would have little opportunities to become who I am. You have to understand that. You can't just be a transplant into a system and think, oh, well, the other people are victims. No. There's 400 years of history, and we have to understand that.
No. But the point is that there's history, but you and I have not been a part of that history. So we must not call ourselves victims. We must not.
I'm not calling. It's not about me. I'm not a victim. I don't have a problem. But I'm describing what is going on in the society.
No, but you're painting too broad a picture.
Okay, we'll do a different show on the anthropology of America and historical issues. But I sincerely appreciate your time, Professor Leombe Eko from the University of Iowa, lives in Texas. Professor Kweku Asare, University of Florida, and Dr. Esikanku, thank you. I enjoyed the conversation.
Right.
And Mr. Bluo, congratulations. Almost.
Yeah, but there's something you mentioned, the protests that are ongoing in America.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
There are some protests going on in Wisconsin, in Michigan, and in Seattle.
Against?
Well, we don't know who the protesters are. They're just mad at the electoral outcome.
We will see how that turns out.
Right.
Keep tuned to City. My name is Bernard Avle. We wish you had more time. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
The Point of View is powered by Airtel Tigo. Have you heard that Airtel Tigo calls from 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. and Airtel Tigo money transfers are now free on new SIMs? Now you know. Airtel Tigo. Life is simple.